Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Pit Against a Live Pleasure Boy Call-In Show. I'm joined by my constant co-host, Kevin Smurf Murphy. Kevin, what's up?
Sup?
Well, I'll do the spiel this time. Pit Against is a live call-in show. If you'd like to be live on air talking to us about your take, join the Pit Against Discord by clicking on the link that's in the description. Then join the waiting room channel, put your hot take in the topics channel, and if we like your take, we'll pull you in for a mic check and then pull you on air. Kevin, I am so amped because pre-release for me is tomorrow. I am just absolutely jazzed, and I lit a plate on fire, but that's unrelated. How have you been?
Good. I went to Tampa for the world premiere, so I played Sealed for 3 days in a row. I have 4 more pre-releases this weekend, so just so much Sealed.
So much
crap.
Rosetta.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll have played. It was 7 sets of Sealed there, 11 Sealed events in 10 days for this game, for this set. Yeah.
A lot.
It is a lot.
Did you get to draft it, any?
We drafted one box after Saturday.
Okay.
I was able to get one draft in.
Well, one draft's at least a draft.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of cool. Anything else, or do you want to jump into calls?
We can jump into topics.
I found a thing that I'm going to try. Okay. This might make the stream mess up. I just realized I had an extra 0 in somewhere. Okay. All right.
Okay.
If after the first take your voice doesn't sound bad, I'm going to ask you to put your video back on. Like if I don't hear anything during the take.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go grab that take because I actually like it. Sure. It's really interesting.
Yep.
Plus, we also have some really cool people in chat. Jonathan Reed, Darth Prentice. We've seen you in chat before. We love talking to you. DM Armada was in chat. Asked a really solid question, and we might get around to doing it. You got one in. You got to do the draft. It's really fun. Oh, I'm so excited to do the draft. Like, I'm excited to do the sealed for the pre-release, but like drafting is my second favorite format in Flesh and Blood, and I'm so excited to draft it. Oh, frick. Especially because I like these kind of sets where I would call the shape of them like a square, where it's like you got 2 Earth, 2 Lightning, 2 Wizard, 2 Runeblade, and they all like intersect that way. I think that's super interesting. But I think we have a caller on the air. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jack. I'm currently in Richmond, Virginia, but I'm about to be moving over to Oregon, Southern Oregon.
Oh, wow. Have we met before?
I don't think so. I've only ever been to one RTN, but
okay.
And it was like a while ago, so I don't know if you've been to the one game shop I usually go to in Richmond, but...
Did you go to the Richmond Battlehardened when was that?
No, sadly I missed it.
Oh, okay. I did get to go to that, so I was wondering if I saw you there. But what would you like to talk about?
So I joined into I started playing Fab after Bright Lights. Like the Bright Lights pre-release was one of the first events I went to, and at that point people had talked about pitch stacking as like a concept that like pro players did. And I was like, oh, that sounds hard. And I play Azalea.
Pro players and my local game store. But yes, go ahead.
Pro players and like the 5 people who win every armory.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, that sounds hard, but I play Azalea, so Knock the Death Whistle is a card, and I'm never going to have to learn that.
True. Okay.
And then the set comes out, and I'm watching the Rosetta
this current set, Rosetta.
Yeah, the world premiere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like watching the Runaways podcast, and they're talking about like having to pitch stack and like going to second cycle or third cycle, and like everything's going to fatigue. And I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to track what I'm pitching and like set up second cycle. Oh god, I thought that was gone. I thought we had left that behind.
No. Well,
Yeah. Turns out Acilio likes very particular turn cycles, and he can do very powerful things. And Sigil of Temporal Manipulation, the one that banishes a card off the top, and if it's a non-attack, lets you play it as an instant. Turns out that's pretty good in a format where your action points are like pretty limited. So
yeah,
like it's by no means going to be necessary to play your pre-releases, to play your armories. But and they're not like memorizing the entire stack. They're just like putting 4 cards in a like it's just remembering the position of like 4 cards in particular, usually. So like it's not going to be a super heavy part of the format, and like you can do 99% of things in the format without it. But it is something that's there. It's something that you can utilize, and we saw people utilize, where it's just like
win games off of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can win games off of it, where it's like, you need to have these 2 cards next to each other, and you just put them a little bit closer because you pitch them both. So it's there. It's a bigger part of this than I think it was in Mistveil, but not by much in terms of like the exact sequencing of everything being pitched.
So I think pitch stacking is just a good. Calling it a skill makes the whole game sound like a chore to some people, but it's a good skill to have. Like it's another thing you can think about in the game that adds more depth to it.
Yep.
Like even for myself in the bigger formats, CC and LL, you can't proper pitch stack that unless you're really trying on Kano. You can. It's hard.
It is.
So what most people do is they do probably one of these 2 things, which is, as Kevin said, you find these little pockets where you're like, whoa. You find these pockets where you have these like certain cards that you really want together, and you put them together, and you're like visualizing them through the deck. You know how many cards until you see them again, stuff like that. But then like the way that I'll play Guardian most of the time is I'm making sure I'm not pitching back to back crippling crush, spinal crush, and then I draw a hand of 3 reds in second cycle. I'm like, okay, what was the last 3 colors I pitched? It was 3 blues. Okay, maybe I don't, or try to find a way to get a red pitched before I pitch this Rouse the Ancients. Because with 3 blues, it might be hard to get the Rouse the Ancients off in second cycle. So
yeah, go ahead.
It's not necessarily memorizing the entire deck. I don't know if that's what you were initially concerned about, but it's not that hard.
No, my initial concern was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to track what I pitch, is because it's just an initial skill increase of like, okay, this is another thing I'm gonna have to track, and I'm more of a casual player rather than like a really competitive one.
Yeah.
But like, shout out to Nat and Zoe in the RVA Discord. They're really good players, and they were basically having the same discussion with some other people in the Discord, and they were like, yeah, it's basically just try to keep track of sending like cards you want together to the bottom. So like 2 card hands, like just send those together. Like you don't have to memorize your whole pitch stack like you guys are saying. So it's a very similar discussion.
Yeah, I tend to not think of it as pitch stacking. It's more of mindful pitching, which is
that's a good way to put it.
And especially in limited, where like if you're in Acilio and you have like a glyph overlay and an exploding aether, and you know that you want to play those cards together because they synergize very well with each other, you don't need to track anything else except those 2 cards. And you just have to know that there's 4 cards between them. And that's what you know. So you know that when you draw up the exploding aether, you put it in arsenal, and you're going to draw it up into the glyph overlay the next turn. And then you go for you have it set up to go for your big turn, and whatever sigils that come with it, you can put the adjust around those. But it's like you're not worried about everything. You're worried about the most important things. Like, I think that goes back to, and I think Zoe from the Richmond Discord would probably also say this about like Dromai, was you didn't care about the exact things or about like every little thing. You cared about where Chromai was, and you cared about where Lost in Thought was. And it's much easier to just track those couple things and be like, okay, I need to wait an extra turn cycle to get to my second Chromai for the big turn. So it's not worrying about that. Or like, because I learned it on Icelander, which was, oh, I pitched an Ice Eternal. I want my next 4 cards to be Ice Blues. That's it. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's a really good point.
You can
draft
take it in pieces.
Yeah, and a great way to actually get into it is draft, right? So these are 30 card decks, much smaller decks, right? You don't have to track it. You don't have to track these same 2 cards until they get 50 cards through your deck. You know, you turn around a few turns and it's right there, and it's actually a really good way to memorize pitch decks or get used to memorizing pitch decks.
Not even memorizing pitch stacking, just tracking the 2 important cards that are left in your deck.
Yeah. Which is interesting because I was talking just a moment ago about how this set is similar to Monarch in structure, from like how, you know, you have 2 heroes that fit 2 archetypes and 2 heroes that fit 2 archetypes. Like there's
it's the
the square shape of the draft, but also Monarch was actually, pitch stack was pretty big in Monarch. Or at least the way I would play it. Second cycling on Bolton and Levia was how I won games mostly. Or Force Prism. That's also an easy way to win. Jonathan in chat said, check your opponent's pitch and pitch things that you can need to handle that later.
Yeah, so this is something called counter pitching, where like if you, as the Bravo player, pitch your Crippling Crush, I might look to pitch my Red Unmovable.
Yeah, that's a really like a definitely very simplified version, but that's exactly it. And you'd see
it's just another thing of mindful pitching, where it's like you look at that and it's like, do I want to change how I do this slightly just to adjust because it might matter later?
Yeah, you might lose like, I don't know, a point or 2 value now, but then it saves you the game second cycle.
Yep.
So what did I ask for your name? What was your name?
Jack.
I swore I asked. Jack?
You did.
Jack. I swore I did. I need to write these down or something. Jack. So how do you feel about pitch decking now? I mean, it's obviously something you can avoid. Like there are certain decks like some ninjas that can just go without doing it.
I mean, like anything else, I can avoid work.
True.
No one can force me to do something I do not want to do.
Well put.
I absolutely can refuse. And I probably will. I mean, I used to play Super Smash Bros. Melee, and the second that people were like, oh, you know, here's how you do like ledge dropping, I was like, no thank you.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, I'm good, actually. So, I don't know. I think that mindful pitching, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That does feel less scary. And I think that's exactly what like Nat and Zoe were talking about in the Discord. But like I think mindful pitching, I don't know why, but that just has like, you know, that has like
it's got a good ring to it.
It has a hippie ring to it. Yeah. It's got like a crystal glow to it.
It's better than what I used to do, which I would pull out my Oldham deck and I would like go through I would like what's the word? I would like goldfish an entire deck's worth of Oldham cards, making a separate pile for my pitch, and then try to guess the card in pitch order and try to memorize pitch that way. Don't do that. It's maybe not the best use of your time.
Unless you're
you can do it,
gonna
but
play Kano.
maybe don't. Yes. Yeah. You know, if you're playing Kano, that's probably different. But I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't. I've heard from some Smurfs that Kano doesn't even want to pitch stack into oblivion his opponents.
It's not real good anymore.
It's not really good anymore.
It's kind of rough now. But I mean, for that, yeah, I had the pitch stack fully memorized. So, but like that's what the game plan dictated, and I go into that game knowing that I'm going to do that, and I put dedicated practice into it. But I still don't do it for anything else. I had a sealed game this weekend where there was literally 4 cards left in the guy's hand. Some guy named Michael Hamilton. And I knew what 2 of the cards were, and I didn't remember what the other 2 cards were. And if I know what all 4 of the cards are in his hand, I know what line I have to take. And I have guaranteed win, but I didn't remember what the 2 cards were, and I took the line anyways.
Well,
but
when you come at the king, you better know all 4 cards in his hand.
You better know every single card in every single deck.
I mean, he did. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe. Very maybe. And if not, I like to imagine that he did.
He probably knew the last 4 cards that I had.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Thank you so much for the call. Anything else? Anything you want to shout out?
Shout out Richmond. Y'all are awesome. I'm sad to be moving away, but hopefully I can build something in Oregon like what we got in Richmond. Y'all are awesome.
Heck yes. Nice. Heck yeah. You might even, I see it all the time, you might even on the Reddit just be like, yo, Oregon, where stores at? And people are pretty good to respond.
It is Southern Oregon. It is Oregon. It is many hours away from Portland, so it's going to be more difficult than that.
It'll be harder. Yeah. Well.
But thanks.
Oh, well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. No, really, though. Good luck.
Have a good show, y'all.
And, hey, yeah, thank you. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Heck yes.
Peace.
Gone. All right. Shout out to Anthony in chat who said Azalea can also hit second cycle. It's actually so the thing about Azalea, we were talking about Azalea. The thing about Azalea is late game, like if you get to your second cycle, like maybe you're not paying attention to your second cycle super, like you're just mindful pitching the whole first cycle. When decks get thin, like you're getting fatigued, you definitely need to start knowing what cards are left in your deck because of how Azalea operates and shifting cards in and out of her deck, in and out of her arsenal.
Yep.
I've lost games, not many, like maybe only 2 as Guardian into Azalea, where they just paid attention to how they're getting fatigued and what's in their deck, and they were able to come across with the last minute 11 dominate for the win. So do you want to get our next caller, or is there anything else you want to talk about for that?
I think I'm good. So I'll go grab next person.
Heck yes, thank you. All right, shout out to you in chat. Yeah, you. Pit Against is a live call-in show. If you want to be like those guys or this guy and join our call with us, you can. Or you just leave a comment in the chat. Just let us know your opinion on it. Because the bigger the discussion, the better the take. Audio's a little wonky. I'm trying to work on that. I've changed a couple of settings. I think it's starting to sound better. It's not perfect. We get this table pit money flowing. We'll buy some better equipment. Oh my gosh, it looks like we got a caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Hey, what's up? I'm Tony. I go by Dolphigalo5 on Twitter, formerly known as X, as well as in the Purple Discord. And I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, actually. So some good old
Alabama.
Southern gaming.
Wow, I've never been there. And what would you like to talk about on the show?
So my hot take, the local boys already know this about me, but I firmly believe that Illusionist was a mistake in this game.
Oh. So,
yep.
yeah, go ahead. Elaborate on that for us.
Oh, yeah. So Fab is obviously a game where every single card matters. You know, you draw 4 cards, you extract the most value out of them from your hand. You spend that hand, you draw 4 more cards, you keep rinsing and repeating until someone dies, right? Illusionist
Yeah.
doesn't really do that. Instead, they slam something on the table that says, hey, if you can't get rid of this, you're going to lose. Oh, look at that. There's another one. Oh, look, there's another one. And it keeps multiplying this board state that is not very conducive to Fab's gameplay loop. And we saw this early on with Prism, you know, the Spectra, ALS, nightmare shit. And then we saw that with Dromai, with the whole big dragon Dromai. That was, oh my God, dude. I remember that one game where like someone in some finals like 40 owed, I think it was like a Guardian player or something like that. Because they just started
As a
playing big
Guardian
dragons.
main, I have never lost against Big Dragon Dromai.
Oh, you haven't?
I've lost one game.
I think you're thinking of round 14 of Baltimore, and it was Ian Zhang on a win-in, and he Dominia'd his opponent's only popper. Oh. And he had just swing board, Kyloria hit, Vincerakai kill you.
Yeah. I think that's what it was.
I believe what the turn was.
But yeah.
Okay, I have a question already. Actually, I have a couple of questions. First is on our statement of illusionist is a oh wait, what? Illusionist is a mistake. So specifically, do you mean it's still a mistake or it was a mistake? Like, Fab's gone through evolutions, you could say, right? So there was Flesh and Blood 1.0, Flesh and Blood 2.0, where they're like, decisions in 1.0 weren't great. We don't love how those heroes turned out and how the game turned out because of it. So we're taking this approach. And then I guess Fab 3 2.5 that we're going through right now. So like, is it, so you're saying this now, it implies to me that you still think illusionist is a mistake, even though I think we've only had one illusionist since 2. No, we've had two illusionists since 2.0.
Yeah, that's too many in my opinion. But in all seriousness, no. But I still believe that the class has a lot of problems for the game. You see Enigma right now. A lot of the gameplay that you see is he like slams the dragon mirror guy in play, and then it becomes protect the president and just start swinging mirror guy every turn. And in the recent banner restricted announcement, they specifically said one of the old core design philosophies of Fab was we don't want it to be a game where you slam a dragon and ride to victory. And we've had at least one illusionist that literally that was their whole design, was playing dragons and riding them to victory. And then we have this new illusionist who plays mirror guy and kind of does the same thing. So it just creates an unfun experience for the opponent when they can't answer that board state.
Okay.
I don't disagree with that, but that I don't think is any different from a crippling crush that you can't block because it's dominated. If it's just like something that like, if you're talking about something like you can't answer, and I understand there's a difference between a crippling crush that like is there for that turn and then you go to the next turn cycle. I understand that. Yeah. But like there are going to be things in this game where you can't answer them, quote unquote. Vincent into Enigma has unpreventable arcane that's just going to wipe the entire board, and that's it. But the illusionist by itself has absolutely had issues. Luminaris should not have existed. Spectra is a very unintuitive keyword as well as a very kind of limiting keyword for the class to have. But the game needs classes that break
Of course.
the math of Flesh and Blood. Otherwise, everything ends up in a sort of
Then there's only one
predetermined.
deck.
Yeah, the game ends up in a predetermined, like the games end up becoming predetermined. Where as soon as the decks are presented, you know who will win if it is played quote unquote correctly, because it is just numbers. And we see this with like Kano breaks the math, the Illusionists break the math, Icelander broke the math in an interesting way. But then we also see stuff like kind of Control Dash does it a little bit. It's like nobody's packing item hate. You can't interact with the pieces of the gun. But then suddenly their turns become insanely efficient as soon as they have multiple pieces online, because they get to turn a blue into like, they get to turn 2 blues into like 12 damage or something, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just another way of doing board state stuff. Do Illusionists have some of the least fun ways to interact with it? Yes. Spectra is incredibly obnoxious. As someone who has played Prism, it's a ridiculous keyword.
Yeah,
So,
no, I definitely agree with what you say there. With the board state, cards that break the math are part of the game as well. That's what creates those fun pivot turns and stuff like that. The Brute having the crazy Blood Rush Bellows turns, Codex of Frailty, all that stuff. But like, I guess the point you made about Dash, with the items and the Exodia Dash, where she gets the where the induction chambers, right, and then the plasma purifiers, they were on them, and then she just starts blasting away for like 4, or whatever. The difference between that and Illusionist is that Dash actually, those items don't block, and you have to actually pay to load them up and do the thing every turn.
Sure.
Whereas like with Dromai, for instance, and granted she's gone from the game, you can still play her in LL, but that's a whole different thing. You play a Sigil of Solace and swing a board of like 10 dragons for one card, like
which is why they talk about they did talk about Dromai some in the Fab 2.0 article, because she is a Fab 1.0 hero, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Anything
like she's not the direction they want to go with the game.
Yeah. Anything with free action points they wanted to kind of get rid of, which like Icelander and Dromai were the last of it. And then Prism, OG Prism with OG Luminaris was the worst of it. Whereas like Prism now doesn't get a ton for free off the auras. Sure, she gets the effects from Spectra, and Genesis is still pretty good, but it's not what it once was either. Where it's like it just also was itself the weapon. So you just kind of like, it was pulling double duty before, and now it's not. There's a very real cost to running those yellow auras, as well as also being no blocks, and costing 4. Like 4 is a massive cost to play these cards. It's huge.
It's in some cases 3 whole cards out of your hand to play out this card.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I guess I should have prefaced this by saying that I am an Azalea player, so a lot of my hate for Illusionist comes from playing against Prism back in like the Monarch Tales of Aria days. So yeah, so that's kind of where this is rooted in as well.
Yeah.
And this,
I mean, rivalries between classes, I think, is one of the coolest parts about Flesh and Blood, because hero identity is really big for a specific person, right? Like Victor is the coolest hero, and it doesn't really make sense why people would want to play other things, like maybe like mechanics, but like he is just the coolest. So I can kind of understand character identity, and I think class identity, like being like, I like Rangers, so I don't like you Illusionist players, as long as it's like, fun and not like hateful, is like, that's a great part of the game, and I really like these little like class rivalries.
Oh yeah,
nothing wrong with that. Love that.
And I also want to say,
Illusionist sucks.
That I do not hate Illusionist players. Okay, you guys are cool.
Oh yeah, no.
Players are fun. All right, I just don't like the class. And like I hate Guardian as well. I used to play Guardian.
Oh,
I actually started off on Bravo.
Well, you said you're playing Azalea. That's like Guardian Light.
Yeah, it's like, except you just lose the fridge, and Instead of crush, you just poke them for 1 point of damage and get the hit effect. So
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I understand the class rivalries as well because ninja players hate me all the time at local levels because I just turn 0, dominate red in the ledger, and they're like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yep,
Yeah.
you know where this game's going." Sorry, but
Yep.
so I get
It's
that.
funny because our last caller is also an Azalea main. They're in chat right now. Azalea call Rise Up.
Yes,
Shout out to Right Time Gaming in chat. What's up, dude?
the cult is growing.
But one more point I did want to make was I think it's important, and I want to hear your opinion on this. I think it's important in card games there should be a healthy variety of ways to play the game that is, if not necessarily the best thing to do, semi-viable. Like you could play it and win every once in a while. And in that sense, there's, most of the time there's like an aggro way to play the game, just no block, all damage, attack, win the game as fast as possible. ADHD card gaming. There's definitely control ways play the game, which is definitely illusionist in some ways, which I think is important to have a class that accrues kind of late game value and slows the game down in its own way, and stuff in between, right? And so I like illusionist for that reason, because even if I don't like playing as it, and I'm not as big of a fan of playing against it, there are people who are just like, I play the game for illusionist because that is exactly how I want to be
they got the
playing
best
this game.
marvels, like
Yeah.
I mean, they do be shiny.
they do.
Stop.
Print money with illusionists.
Heck yes.
True.
But yeah, I do like, as far as illusionist design goes, Enigma I think is one of the more interesting ones because the onus on protecting the board state is on the Enigma player and less so on the opponent. It's not like the opponent's like, oh, I have to pull action points out my ass to destroy these Spectre auras, like, and it's not like, oh, I have to put 6 power attacks in my deck and I'm playing Azalea to pop dragons or something. It's, oh, I have to present enough damage, present breakpoints, do evasive damage or whatever to try to put the Enigma player on the back foot, so they have to lose their board state. They have to make that choice. Do I give up cards to protect my board state or whatever? And that's actually a really cool design. So Enigma's good on that point. It is just annoying when she goes, Mirror Guy, Warmongers, and I look at my hand of null non-attacks and I'm like, uh-oh. This isn't good.
I mean, Mirror Guy is kind of a bomb in the same way other cards are a bomb, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you hold cards to play Crippling Crush, and then you do crush them, and they have to take a whole turn off, and then you maintain more tempo as Bravo. That's like a huge bomb that can like pivot the game. And in the same way with Mirror Guy, they attack with Mirror Guy, and you're like, I can block this. I shouldn't, because I need to get rid of Mirror Guy. And in that sense, it puts you in a different kind of pickle where it's just like they played their power card. I have to play around it a little bit. They're going to get some tempo. And this is something that I think LSS does really like, is they like these kind of bomby cards, but it's not like game winning. It's just like turn cycle winning. I don't know. What's your thought on that, Kevin?
I mean, it comes with any card that like just goes above rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of what we just saw with the whole BNR that happened last week.
All the books and stuff, yeah.
Like we saw Codex in Lexi do extremely well because it was getting like 8 or 9 points of value over like 2 turn cycles. Frailty was super good in that meta. Like that's just decks need to have powerful cards to be fun, but the powerful cards need to have downsides. Mirror Guy is a no block. I think it should have been a red pitch, and then 3 visits should have been a blue pitch. I think they could have swapped those, and it would have been really good for the game. And Enigma would still be a powerful deck. You'd still play Mirror Guy like in your deck, but makes it more interesting, at least, than it just being a blue that you can always just pitch around. It's decks need to have powerful cards for people to want to play them. Like, it's why we see LL getting so much attention now, is like, you're doing really powerful things in LL, but everyone is doing really powerful things. So it doesn't feel like it's lopsided where it's just kind of like one thing completely hoses another once they got rid of half of Starvo stuff, at least. So it's, I don't know. Enigma's a weird spot, though, to me, in terms of design, because Enigma's just such a stat check for decks, where if you can't present a big enough number, you just lose. And Enigma's going to have more 4DO games than any other hero. I think they have printed so far, but maybe more than any other hero they ever print. Just because because the way Ward works.
My interesting take when it comes to Enigma is, like, for some new heroes that come out, I'm thinking of you, Betsy, Arachne. You're like, there is not a reason to play this hero yet. We're waiting on those expansion slot cards, right? But with Enigma, it feels like a lot of other people are waiting. You see that hero come out and you're like, well, now I want the expansion slot card, not the new guy. I need it now. Yeah, where's my Guardian Mastery set?
Next year.
I mean, even Warrior has one or two ways to, like, prevent or even ping a little bit of damage.
Like the Steel Blade Shunt.
Does Steel Blade Shunt work on Ward?
So it
like
works
Ward
on
weapons?
them. It works on Enigma because Cosmo, or I believe all the illusionist weapons that Enigma can run, turn the Ward auras into weapons, which means Shunt, when it is played, will deal 1 damage.
Well, then it really feels like Warrior has at least, even if it feels bad, like 2 ways to deal with it. Whereas Guardian, they can.
You just kind of have to hit them hard enough every
Kind of
turn.
have to hit them and fast enough. Like, it's
like
definitely like
Guardian fashion. You kind of have to hit them.
Yeah,
you'll get there.
But like Guardian doesn't get the choice of blocking. Like, you cannot afford to block in that matchup.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Is this? Don't tell me this is the Shield Bash card from Dynasty.
Shield Bash. If a Guardian offhand with one or more, well, let's look at the red. Let's look at the blue. Guardian offhand with one or more defense is defending this chain link. Oh, that's a big ask. Well, I guess Rampart. Deal 1 damage to the attacking hero. Well, Rampart costs 1 in order to give it 1, and then this already costs 3. This is interesting. Deal 1 damage to the attacking hero unless they discard a card. It's not.
So Enigma just discards a card.
Yeah, so Enigma just discards a card. Maybe if they're out of cards in hand.
Yeah, if they fully tap out and you have all these pieces,
and then you hit one of their spectral shields, and you're like,
pop a spectral shield. Like, oh,
no,
guy.
You got it.
Oh man,
you're not hitting me next turn. Lovely.
2 cards to block 4 and destroy a spectral shield. Let's go. Red block 6.
2 cards in Tunic. 3 cards in Tunic.
3 cards in Tunic. Ugh.
2 cards in Tunic. 2 cards in Tunic.
2 cards Tunic.
Yeah, it costs 3. So
yeah.
Is there another shield that has a defense value that doesn't?
Not that you can use multiple times.
Taper over time.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you're on like the Seasoned Savior and that one weird card that bumps its defense.
No, you are losing the
Forge
game
Steel or something.
Yeah, Forge
Steel. You're losing the game in
Record
deck
punch.
Construction at that point.
Hey, the Mastery set's gonna have support for Seasoned Savior. Trust. All right.
I hope the heck not. I actually when Dynasty came out, or right before it did, my letter to Santa Claus was that they put more Crush cards in, because I think Crush is a really neat mechanic.
That letter got lost in the mail.
Yes, it did.
He did not get a single attack for Guardian
Rip that, man.
Dynasty.
The only thing we got was like the next year we got or I guess it was the same year we got what's the blue that came out of RTT? Boulder Toss
Boulder Drop
or something.
Oh,
Boulder Drop.
Yeah.
Boulder Drop's fine. Like Boulder Drop's very fine.
There is a reason they couldn't print it in red.
There's a reason they couldn't print it in red yet.
Yeah.
Mastery set.
Nah.
So I have one last question on your take, which is you said Illusionist is a mistake. Since I would like to talk about this in the sense of Fab 2.0, 2.5. So I wouldn't be talking about Dromai. Actually, like someone in chat said Dromai is a I can't find it. It's technically a 2.0 hero, but designed in 1.0.
Yes.
If they're designed in 1.0, I'm calling them a 1.0 hero.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Just like Ice
So-
Rider was in the same set.
Even if she existed after 2.0 was announced, like 2.0 is in effect when those cards are printed.
It's like outside onwards, right? Those are the 2.0 heroes.
I think so.
Okay.
Essentially, in terms of like
I
the
would-
actual
I would say
design
yes.
in terms of the design philosophy, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So thinking about a 2.0 forward, it's so in the sense that Illusionist is a part of the game, it's a way people want to play it. Mistake wouldn't mean that it needs to be scrubbed, right? It's more of a sense of it could be fixed.
I think then it needs to spend more time in the oven before,
More
it
time.
comes out. They
I
need
was what I was hoping to ask was like, how would you fix Illusionist?
how do I fix it? I've talked about it with the local boys a lot on things of this nature. One of the things they suggested, I thought was kind of interesting, was like counters on the permanents, so they only stay for like a certain number of turns, and then they
Like burn
eventually
them
go
all?
away. Yeah, like burn them all basically. But like,
Okay.
so if there is a spectral aura, like a Shimmers of Silver in play, it's not just, oh my god, I'm getting +1 on the weapon every single turn I swing it until the end of the game. It's okay. It's only lasts for about 3 or 4 turns, or whenever you like burn them all type thing. Whenever you run out of cards to banish from your banish zone or graveyard or whatever,
Sure.
that could be one way to enable counterplay for them.
Would you
Another thing as well, which I'm not sure if this is the correct route, but just giving more classes tools to counter illusionists, but then you just risk illusionists
just disappear?
kind of being deleted from the game.
Well,
if that's the case.
I think actually inventing, I wouldn't like go so far as to maybe say like silver bullet cards, because that implies like something that completely shuts them down.
Yeah.
But maybe like power cards into that class are cool because of sideboard, because of the way tournaments are structured.
So we did just get in this set a bunch of cards for Runeblade that destroy opponents' auras.
Yep.
Like just flat out destroy them. Like Blast to Oblivion in particular, you play an instant and it bounces a 1-cost aura back to their hand. Which, like, bouncing a Shimmers doesn't sound great, but that's an entire action point they have to spend. It's any counters on it gone. It's actually like it is a reasonable amount of disruption. Bouncing a ward aura that's 1 cost or less and is 3. Just bouncing a Spectral Shield is at least worth 1. It doesn't feel great, but if it has like 3 counters on it because it was a Spectral Manifestations, that's 4 damage you don't take next turn, and the Spectral Shield just disappears. So like they're putting some interaction in. Is it perfect? No, I don't think they would say it's perfect either. But this set is interesting. It has a lot more aura hate than I anticipated it to have.
Definitely. And like that, what is it? That card Snuff Out or something? Isn't that another one that like can destroy an aura?
I believe Snuff Out, you sack your own aura and they on hit discard.
Okay. Yeah, that's not, you sack your own aura for the discard. Okay.
I believe so.
And it also has to hit for the effect, which if it
Yes.
hits Enigma, she doesn't have any ward. And
She
play
has no
anyway,
ward
so-
for it. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
Having a
I
bit of
think
a
they are-
discussion on. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was just gonna say, overall, I think LSS is trending towards the right direction. It was just kind of funny when they said Enigma is going to be the least polarizing illusions we've released, and then like,
Nope.
oh god, no.
Nope.
So
What
but
was
every
the
set
what
they
was
learn,
the
so that's good.
Yes.
what was the set order before Outsiders? Before Outsiders, it was
Dynasty was immediately before it, then Uprising, then Everfest, if you're going backwards in time.
Then Tails, Monarch,
Tails,
Crucible,
Monarch.
Arcane, and Welcome to Wraith.
I think they're having a discussion in chat about when 2.0 is, or a loose one, and I think I still stand that 2.0 is Outsiders, because that was also when I think this, people might disagree with this, but I think Codex of Frailty is a good indicator of Fab 2.0, because that card is kind of that thing that Brian Gottlieb likes to talk about, where he's like, I want classes to have power cards.
That's the standard for a power card now.
Yeah.
Which, even then, it is probably the equivalent of a 0 for 4 on that turn, and then you get pieces of value on later turns because of it. Where it's like, it's a powerful card. It's worth a lot.
Frailty eventually means something. The
maybe
Ponder
get a point
does.
of value. Ponder you don't get until next turn and is not guaranteed, even though Lexi used it incredibly well.
You could get a really weird blue and just be like,
Active in the arsenal.
The number of times I have pondered a Light of Soul in Prism because I grabbed Figment of Erudition and then I just draw a Light of Soul and I'm like, well, that's not going in my arsenal. I'm just going to hold it. 2.0 is when. So they say 2.0 in that when they completely changed the like not set distribution, but like the way they design a set in terms of First and Unlimited, and they labeled that as 2.0. I think there's separate things here. Dragons for the first.
Also, 2.0 was like huge. Like, it wasn't just competitive. It dealt a lot with casual, a lot with collectability, a lot with. It was just a huge shift that probably happened over the course of like a year that affected a lot of different things. But I think when we think set construction, or I still
design
think
philosophy.
Design philosophy, yes.
I do think when they talk about 2.0 in terms of design philosophy, it did not hit until Outsiders. I think Uprising was their start of that transition to 2.0 when they also changed collectability and like the way they wanted the game to look, where you have in particular the very cheap playable versions of the dragons that I used, and then the Marvels that Mara has a double set of that she used, and that was part of that, as well as like First and Unlimited being done away with. There is just the print run. Their business philosophy or their collectability philosophy moved at a different pace than their design philosophy. But
I really like the duo of Brian Gottlieb and James White, because they seem to feed off of each other really well.
They do, but they're also like good checks and balances on each other.
Yeah, they look at the game very differently. You can like tell like the way James has talked about it in isolation before, like when he was by himself as lead designer, and then also when Brian was brand new into the game and he was like giving his strong opinions from like almost like an outsider's perspective. You can really see they're very different on the way that they look at Flesh and Blood, and I like that a lot, and I'm sure they know that too.
Yeah. I think it's why Brian has been so successful at the company and stayed at the company, and he went from just a consultant or contractor to full time with them because of that.
Yeah.
So,
and we got his first hero in the game, right? Azuri.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was Arachne. No, I guess it is Azuri, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think Arachne, like Assassin, was like the first thing he got his hands on.
Yeah.
But Azuri was the first one that he like led on.
Yeah, Arachne was underperforming, so he chose not to.
Azuri's really good.
Azuri,
Azuri, like as a hero, really cool. Like,
Yeah.
reminds me of Victor in just how the flavor hits the mechanics, hits the everything.
I'm gonna isolate you and then give you the shakedown or something like that, you know.
Well, speaking of isolate, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
God.
Just shout out the good old
Oh, like our
Huntsville.
Patreon?
Oh yeah, I guess if you want to give these guys money, you know, go to their Patreon, so that way they can keep
what? No, what was
cards.
your actual shout out? What was your actual shout out? I
Oh
missed
yeah,
it.
it's the Huntsville, North Alabama Flesh and Blood community.
Yo,
you know,
Nice.
super cool community.
Shout out
Shout out
Huntsville.
to my family, friends, all those people. They're
Oh,
probably not even gonna watch this, but whatever. So
you can bring them on when you're on next week.
yeah.
Thank you so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
All right, later.
Later. All right, that was good. I liked that one. There was a lot to talk about there. We didn't even talk about Rosetta or Ira yet.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about either of them.
We get those illusionist was a mistake.
Rosetta
takes
might be
every
more
once in a while.
interesting to talk about next week after we've had pre-releases.
After everyone's had pre-release, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Ira any? How does Ira affect the meta? Or
So-
how much longer do you want this to run? Like
I'm
we're
down to
at
do
9.
a quick Ira bit, but I think it's going to be a lot of like it depends. I will say, Ira being introduced in this meta with the changes they've just made means she's actually going to do something.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because like they just slowed down the meta a whole lot, and they made things a lot grindier. Because like you see Florian coming in, you see Verdant's coming in. Those are super grindy heroes and mid-rangey heroes, and Ira's very comfortable with that game. She loves that game. So like, there's going to be a really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Ira decks and CC, because I think we saw this in Clash when we were doing those games. There's very defensive, grindy Ira decks. And even then, we actually just saw this at the Commoner event this weekend in Tampa. The Commoner Gold Foil event, the top 2 people were Natalie Hunt and Zoe Gerstner from Richmond on exactly the same 52 Ira.
Yep.
And they were undefeated until
killing
they
it.
met in the finals.
Yep.
And it was
it's a solid deck.
It was a fairly defensive, grindy Ira deck. It was not the aggressive ones that we would see in Clash. So
it's the kind of go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see what Ira wants to do, if she wants to stay on that super grindy game plan in CC when the games go even longer against the heroes that like, because there's some heroes now that actually ramp up in power rather than down, which is something that Fab is traditionally, they power down as the game goes on. But Ira is going to have can be built to have a very consistent damage output throughout basically the entire game.
I feel like she's going to be built to target Arsenal like super hard. Like you're not going to want to use that mechanic in your game as much.
She definitely could. Because Ira loves that cycle of rares that just came out.
Yeah,
that are all Arsenal hate.
There's also older rares like the one from Outsiders.
Wreck Havoc becomes a 7.
That card is very fine. Like it's not bad.
I mean, she's still just going to do Command and Conquer for 7. She's going to do Amnesia for 7.
Is so good.
Amnesia for 7 is actually huge into all the Runechant heroes.
That one, oh,
yeah.
That one's that's good.
Yeah.
There's the one that frick. The new one that came out that targets 0 blocks.
Weakest Link.
Oh, that card's so good.
Going to be very good against the Lightning heroes. In this coming set.
A couple of classes.
Yeah.
I've actually had it hit against a hit against a ranger and took their first Rain Razor of the game, which that felt super awesome.
They should have just played it in response, but yeah.
Oh, I guess they do, and then I don't draw a card.
Yeah.
You live and learn.
Yep.
Hanging on the edge of tomorrow. So the thing about Ira that I think is really interesting compared to other grindy matchups, which most of the time you think of something like Rhinar or you think of Guardians, the thing is, she does a bunch of like this little chip damage, and like you get halfway or more through the game, and your life total is just much lower than you feel like it should be.
Yep.
Because like Kodachi's they'll suck your life out, and you not even realize it. Like, sure, I'll just take this. Yeah, they're miserable to block, and they add up really fast. And I oftentimes feel like, oh, I'm not actually taking that much damage to Ira until you look at the life total. Like the turn over turn, you're like, yeah, this feels like we're having a good back and forth here. Then, yeah, then your life total is much lower than you thought it would be.
Yeah, you do that over 10 turns, and you're down 20 health, and Ira's okay with that because she's probably also down 20 health and just like kind of chilling. So.
Nathaniel in Clash is highlighting one of my interesting takes for next week about Kodachis in Clash.
Yep.
But I like the take in chat. Who would win, a ninja or a billionaire? That's actually an interesting question. If she's playing a more grindy matchup, how well does she do into Teklevossen?
This is what I'm saying is like some of these heroes scale up better than she does.
Yeah.
And it's like can she build a deck that can actually pressure Teklevossen? Because otherwise that matchup might just be unwinnable. If he just gets to 2-card 9, she doesn't match that. She doesn't, like, as well as all the armor that Teklo's going to get, he can like super efficiently block out Kodachis and stuff, and then he's going to hit Singularity and just pivot and blow you up. Or Florian is going to hit his threshold, and he's suddenly going to make 10 rune chants on a turn. And it's like, you want to talk about Kodachis being annoying to block? Rune chants are in that number? Good luck. You're not fatiguing a Florian.
Yeah.
As Ira.
The interesting thing is finding where she's going to sit in this meta, right?
Yep.
Because if she can't handle some of these later game decks, does she have a spot as the best value deck? Like, where does she fit on the other end of the spectrum? Like against, let's say, I'm just thinking of another kind of grindy deck like Axis Dory.
Yeah,
it's like a value deck. How does she stack up value versus value?
She'd probably have a hard time against Dory. Against Hatchet Dory.
That is a lot of value.
Dynamos.
Some of those cards do insane. Dynamos.
Sick
Kodachi counter.
Sick Kodachi dork.
I
got
Especially
Dynamos.
if you're doing like Kodachi into 2 for 6, and you're just like, I got the first one.
Dynamos,
or at least
cards.
I can.
Here's 8 resetting my Dynamos that you also have to block out correctly. Otherwise, it's actually going to be a 2-card 12. Like,
that's crazy.
But then like you have Hatchet Dory, and like, what does Hatchet Dory do against Verdance, or in particular Enigma?
This meta is it feels so wide right now and it's interesting.
I will say I was worried about Enigma in this meta because everything just slowed down. If like Rosetta wasn't going to have enough gas, I think Rosetta has enough interesting stuff at the very least where I'm not super worried at the moment. I think Enigma's still going to be very powerful. Like she is. The meta slowed down and she likes slow metas, but I'm very interested.
She might be what the meta revolves around.
Yes.
Which is like
she's going to be the standard.
She's not necessarily the best deck, but she's the deck where like
she's the
she exists. So then Rune Blades exist. So then things that counter Rune Blades exist.
Yep.
Which is interesting, and I kind of really like that. Yeah. I get to beat up on my local Verdances.
I can't wait
Florians.
for people to go, I'll block with Traverse, I'll get a Chi, I'll play Mirror Guy, swing both Mirror Guys, chain end on Warmongers.
Diplomacy. Say diplomacy.
Yeah, Warmongers diplomacy.
Warmongers recital.
Play diplomacy.
Play diplomacy.
Runeblade presents like 7, and you present back another 16.
I need to.
And then they're dead.
I need to actually print out those diplomacy.
War and Peace.
My War and Peace cards. Dude, that was the biggest brain thing. I'm putting them up on screen. I'm so proud of them. This is the biggest brain thing I ever did. I made you one for Wizards.
War.
That's right, Wizards War.
War and Wizard
War. War. Other war.
Halloween
there
Man,
any
Chappelle
other-
Roan, J-Pop Star, and Dominion Energy. Dominion Energy sounds about right for Cilio.
Dominion Energy.
I think he's just magical AI, but yeah.
Check this out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone picks for diplomacy.
I don't
You can
think
set it on the table to where
Have you
a
pulled it up?
peace and a war is pointing at somebody.
Oh, there it
I
is.
love it.
Now it's over your face.
Well, I move it.
Okay.
I move it. I haven't played Wizard
Yeah.
or Runeblade before, but I'm excited for Halloween, man. For Halloween, man. Oh, this is what you were saying.
Yeah.
I was ignoring you while I was putting the card on
Yeah, I
screen.
could tell.
Who's Chappelle Roan?
She's a musician who looks a lot like Verdance.
Oh, sure. Sure, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
All my
So-
music tastes are from 2006.
Sane.
This is why we don't do a music podcast. All right.
Nope. All right.
I think that's it.
Yep, I'm
Is
good.
there that about wraps it up. Kevin, do you have any shout outs?
Go play pre-releases. This
Yeah.
sealed format is the games for this sealed format are fun. Playing the games are legitimately fun.
Draft is the best way to play. Period.
Well, you can do that next
I'm
week.
glad you said that. I'm so excited to draft. Oh, I'm so excited. to
Drafting
draft.
this set is really interesting. It's really
I'm so
interesting.
excited. I love this style of draft. This like monarch-esque style of draft. I'm very, very excited. And in a way, it kind of also reminds me of Uprising, where you got this arcane damage, and how does that fit into the mix?
Yep.
Or at least watching it. I don't know about playing it.
Yeah.
But
No, it's interesting. We'll come back and talk about it day before release next week.
yeah. That sounds
All right.
good. Other than that, what I was going to shout out is this. I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's got
Yeah.
our logo on it. Look at this. Which, Kevin, I need to get with you anyways and be like, what kind of shirt from Pit Against would you wear? Like, if I was to make
Yep.
Pit Against shirt designs, what would you actually want to wear? Drafting is the best way to play. Draft's the best way to play, especially in this
Ooh.
format, because there's no double-sided cards.
There's no
So-
double-sided cards, so you don't need to sleeve.
I am not going to sleeve.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to buy sleeves because I'm not buying the Blitz precons this go around. So
Ah,
I was like, you know what? Support your LGS, buy some sleeves.
Sure.
Also, exact 30.
I like
I
it.
don't know if that should be every draft set, but exact 30 is really good.
They could have been they could have done a little differently in Bright Lights, but I think it's good for these two formats. And
Exact
would've-
25 in Bright Lights.
No.
Exact 20.
No. Oh, bro, no.
Exact 40?
No, it would have
Well-
been like 30 to 35.
Exact 35.
So you can't just run like 40 and mono 3 block.
30 to 35 is actually kind of like saying you can have a deck between 30 and 35
Yeah.
is really interesting.
You get a
And
little
also
bit of
makes
leeway
me-
because boost is a thing. You need it. But
Are these statements on the side of the box? Like how
For
big
how
your deck
sealed
should be
works?
in the
I don't
how
know.
sealed, how draft works? Because I think it should, especially for people who just buy
probably.
a box.
Yeah.
Okay. All
right.
right, that's it. All right, thank you so much for watching. We have a video coming out this weekend where I light a plate on fire along with other things. Bye.
Peace.